What's wrong with you, man?
Nothing.
Okay, I hear you. I don't want to know.
Hello and welcome to a special episode of JoomCast. This episode is completely focused on the upcoming Joomla elections, namely for the position of president. I'm Tim Davis from CyberSalt, and I'm here with my co-host, Chetan Madan of JoomDev. Hey, Chetan.
Hi, Tim. How you doing?
I'm doing great. It's good to be back, and it's always fun to do something different.
Yeah.
Our goal is to present a non-biased audio platform for people to get to know the two candidates running for president and then cast their vote accordingly or contact those who are able to vote for them, and we'll talk about that in just a second. Why don't you tell everyone about some of our setup and preparation to keep things even and fair in this episode?
So our recording setup for this episode is totally different and not like we do the rest of the episodes. We recorded each of the candidates, two of them, in separate calls and are combining them into the one podcast just for you. We gave them 3 minutes to answer each question, and if anyone went over, we just clipped the end off.
We also flipped a coin to see which person's answer was played first for the first question, and then we alternate it on subsequent questions.
You can find the manifestos for both the candidates by visiting bit.ly/2020Joomla. That's bit.ly/2020Joomla. The only people who can actually cast a vote for president are team leaders, assistant team leaders, or existing team members of the Joomla volunteering team. But you can contact those people who can vote and tell them who you think they should vote for and why.
To find them and contact them, create a profile at volunteer.joomla.org, click on Teams, and you'll see their avatars and you can contact each person directly. Plus, you'll have a profile on the volunteer portal and you can look around and see what area you can help in.
Let's get to the candidates' answers by starting with question number 1. Who are you and what do you do? Tell us your Joomla story.
You're asking one of my favorite questions within the Joomla community. My name is Brian Mitchell. I run a Joomla-based web development and hosting company here in Wisconsin in the United States. Part of the interesting part of a Joomla story is figuring out sort of where the technology begins. For me, it started with my first computer. I was in 6th grade. My parents bought me a Commodore 64. And it introduced me to the world of basic programming and, of course, word processing. I was of the generation that was the first generation that didn't have to learn how to use a typewriter because we had those old dot matrix printers. The World Wide Web was actually created during my undergraduate years when I was in college. And I have a vivid recollection of my roommate dragging me down to the computer lab to show me this amazing new technology. And he fired up Netscape Navigator and had me type in Yahoo. And I had no idea what Yahoo was or what it meant. And he asked me what I wanted to learn about, and I was stumped. So I remember looking down at my lap, and I was wearing blue jeans at the time. And so my very first search on the World Wide Web at yahoo.com was for blue jeans. About a year and a half later, I was hired into a local nonprofit organization that was fresh out of college. I, of course, was the youngest member on the staff at that organization. I was the most technically savvy. I remember having to go into my boss's office using his dial-up modem to go on the computer to look up things. We had that one internet-connected computer in the whole facility. At some point, they decided they needed a website. It was time to get online. And I remember working with some of the volunteers of that organization to create early versions of that first website, starting in front office and then migrating to Dreamweaver. And then at some point, I stumbled upon PHP Nuke and Post Nuke. And I remember doing installations of those and using those for a short period of time. And then finally I was introduced to Mambo. I was able to follow the fork from Mambo into Joomla. So it is a point of pride. And I always love meeting people that can talk about, starting using Joomla before Joomla was Joomla. It was an appropriate time for me because I co-founded my own nonprofit around that time. I was in my mid-20s. And we set that up as a 5-year research project that was exploring how volunteer organizations could engage and stay relevant in a postmodern world that was increasingly digital. So it was a good time. I was transitioning into Joomla right around the time we were founding that organization. We ran that project for 5 years and we closed it as planned in 2006, at which time I launched Intergen, my current web development company, and we still maintain a heavy emphasis on serving nonprofit organizations as well as for-profit. In 2013, I went to my first Joomla presentation. It was by Jess Dunbar, if anyone remembers her. And she was the first Joomla volunteer that I met. She invited me to the Joomla World Conference in Boston, which I attended later that year, and that's how I got started.
My name is Rowan Hoskins-Abrahall. I am a site integrator. I initially started building sites in HTML and CSS a very, very long time ago. And then I moved to PHP Nuke, post Nuke, and then someone introduced me to Mambo. And I just finished moving all of my clients' sites from post Nuke to Mambo when the fork happened. And I've always believed in open source and a free and open internet. So I had to go and explain to my clients that we were changing the name, everything looked the same, but yes, it confused them. And from there, I was building sites with Joomla, then I set up a business and I ran it using Joomla. The first event I went to was 2009, Joomla Day UK. I met lots of people there, and then I wasn't really in the community for a while. I started coming back in, I think, in 2013. One of the first things I did for the project was to sit down with Diane Henning and write our current code of conduct. And then I got involved in the JET team and ended up doing all the travel, and then ended up in CLT. Then I became events director, and I've been president for the last 2 years.
Here's question number 2. Why are you running for the president's position?
I'm currently the president, and I am yet to finish what I started. I've been in leadership for almost 4 years, and I need another 6 months to finish tweaking the transition, getting our ducks in a row, because if we fail to professionalize in this market, we're going to die. So I truly believe that what I've started deserves finishing. Sadly, a combination of things moving slowly and me suffering from physical burnout for 4 months last year slowed things down. I truly believe a change of horses at this stage would cause more confusion than it would give clarity. And I think after all the blood, sweat and tears I've put in, I do deserve the opportunity to finish what I started, hand over with grace, and leave this project much healthier than when I got here.
I am running for president because I believe greatly in Joomla. I believe even more in what Joomla represents to software and to the broader world. I've met many amazing people from all over the world, many different cultures, all because of Joomla. I think even in the land of open source software, Joomla holds a unique place. We do not have the classic benevolent dictator for life. Of course, there's Dries and Mullenweg. We can talk about Drupal and WordPress. I think the BDFL, or the benevolent dictator concept, was invented for Guido van Rossum with Python. And of course, we can look to Linus Torvalds for Linux. Joomla doesn't really have that. I think it's an amazing gift. It makes the project and the software more resilient. We aren't dependent on the ambition or the vision of just one person. And it also affords the opportunity for new leaders to bring new energy and new ideas into the project. And of course, my desire to run for president is in that spirit. So one of the challenges that that model presents when you don't have that consistent person at the front of the room is asking what provides for continuity within the organization. How do you maintain a sense of where you've been to where you are to where you want to go as an organization, even if you work through different leaders? And for me, the answer is really clear. It comes down to core values. And for Joomla, and again, this is why I'm so passionate about the project, are these 7 statements, and it's right on the core values page. We talk about freedom, equality, trust, community, collaboration, usability, and transparency. And any of us that have been with the project for a while, I think, can speak to experience and moments where we felt really strongly connected to those values, where it's really resonating with our experience at that time. And I think, unfortunately, there's also times that we can reflect on it where we don't live those things out as well. And one of the reasons I want to run for president is because I think this is a time where we can refocus on those things, sort of center ourselves back in the core values as they apply to our technology, to our user engagement, to our leadership, to our professionalism, to our marketing. I think they cut across all aspects of Joomla as a community and as an organization and as a software project. So I'm excited to run for president because I believe deeply in those values, and I hope to bring a greater focus on those moving forward.
Question number 3. What do you see as the president's role in an open source project like Joomla?
Actually, I'd like to talk about leadership in general, and then I'll get a little bit more specific about the role of president towards the end. This actually was a significant part of the manifesto that I put forward when I was running. And so if you're interested in looking into this in more detail, I know that both Round's manifesto as well as my own are posted at community.joomla.org. So I'd invite people to go and check those out. Mine is titled Thoughts on Joomla, and I have a section at the end focused on leadership and what I think is important for being a good leader. There's really 3 main areas that I zero in on. The first is sort of the most tactical and administrative. Different leaders within the board in particular have particular administrative functions, but as a group, we of course are the stewards of the code, finances, of resources, things like trademark. It's our job to sort of provide the administrative function for the organization and to make sure we're doing a good job taking care of those things. The second area that I focus in on is really focused on succession planning and leadership transition. I think as leaders within the organization, we have a responsibility to each other to manage those transitions effectively. We should win elections gracefully. We should lose them gracefully. We should encourage competition. I think it's very beneficial for the organization to have multiple people running for offices as much as possible. It gives us choices and things to choose from as we're discerning where we want to go as an organization. And then the last, and I think most important, as I talked about being the steward of the resources, I think the resource that's most important for Joomla are its volunteers, the people that make up the organization. And our the main role is to create an environment where our community members can flourish, where they can bring their best creativity, their enthusiasm, their energy, their ideas. And it's our job as leaders to bring that forward. So one of the things that came forward at the Forum for the Future that was recently held in Spain, there were lots of conversations around greater engagement from our volunteers. But one of the things that I heard and has just stuck with me in recent weeks and reflecting back is somebody said somewhere along the way, Joomla went from a community of I will to a community of may I. And it gave me pause. I really would like to see us move back to a position where our leadership is focused on empowering people to achieve great things within the organization, where the community doesn't feel like they have to ask permission to do those things, but where the leadership is empowering them to bring their best creativity forward. So I really see the president as the servant in chief of the organization. It's our job to facilitate, to help create that environment, to encourage involvement and enthusiasm.
My view probably differs from a lot of other people's. What a president should be is a listener, a leader, a guider, and to some extent an agony aunt. I'm a huge empath. I care about people. I find out about people. I learned a trick a long time ago to make sure that you find out if people are doing their hobbies. Because if people stop doing their hobbies, that is a very, very good sign there is something not right with it. And I believe a president should care about every single member in the community and provide a safe and friendly environment for anyone to contribute.
Question 4 is, what one major change would you make to Joomla if you are elected, and why is that important?
An end to toxicity. Humans are mean, and there is a lot of mean-spiritedness in this community, and it hurts people. That I would change, and I was also, it's hand in hand. The toxicity is huge, but we have people working 60 to 80 hours a week for this project. And if you do the mathematics and include eating and sleeping, that leaves very little time for people to earn money. And one of the things I'd really like to do, which I think would help with the toxicity as well, is get some people who are working that hard on a universal basic income so they can pay their rent and they can put food on their table.
This is one of my favorite questions that you're posing today, because it goes to one of the core themes of my manifesto. Before you can answer the question, you have to say, what is Joomla? So if I'm going to make a change to Joomla, are we talking about the community? Are we talking about the software? And where do we want to focus? I actually am going to shift gears a little bit and talk about the content management system software. And if I could change one thing, I would like to, almost as a mantra, create the notion of a focus, a laser-like focus on greater capability with less effort. I'm going to say that again because it's really central to everything else I want to say about this question. Greater capability with less effort. It's really the definition of a tool, of what a tool is. And so if there's an apple up in the tree and I want to get that apple, I might reach down to the ground and grab a stick to knock the apple down. What that stick has done is it's increased my capability and reduced my effort. I get the joy of the apple without having to put in as much work as I would have to do were I to climb the tree. Joomla is a tool. It's a tool for 3 main markets. It's a tool for content creators, it's a tool for website builders, and it's a tool for extension developers. Coming off of the Forum for the Future that I referenced earlier, Victor Drover wrote a fantastic article that he titled A Love Letter to Joomla. In it, he talks about the joy of the authoring experience, of authoring content. And he talks about a lot of great platforms that are out there that make authoring content really easy. So that's one, and I'm going to leave it to Victor's article for folks that are interested in pursuing that. I would love to take that same focus that Victor had for authoring and apply it to website builders. And we look at it with our page builders, sort of the drag and drop interfaces, things like the media manager. How can we make it as easy as possible for website builders to do amazing things? And we've had tons of discussions around where do we put the parameters and the options and those sorts of things. If we're always focusing that question on user experience, understanding our user as the builder, how do we give them great power with incredible simplicity? And those two things are in tension, but they're not opposed to each other. And then the third group is our extension developers. And of course, that same philosophy applies. The reason we do breaking changes is we're modernizing the code base to hopefully make the lives easier long term for extension developers so that they're able to use the latest technologies. And the last piece I would add to this is we look at those 3 areas of greater capability with less effort, is to now switch gears back to the community and say, well, what if that philosophy applied to the community as well? What if our focus as leaders within the organization was allowing our volunteers to come forward, increase their capability, and reduce the friction that they have as they're trying to contribute to the project overall? So if there's one change I could make, it would be to focus on greater capability with less effort.
And for the question number 5, how can Joomla have a healthy community of developers, users, and volunteers?
I think our best response to that is we already have the blueprint. My contention and my desire for running is that I feel like we can live out more fully who we claim to be. That starts with leadership. And what I mean by that is if you look at our logo for Joomla, it's 4 people interlocked in shared effort. They're working together. The name all together, Joomla, the core values that I listed earlier, even our vision statement, our licensing, even the GPL speaks to collaborative effort. The features and the structures of the Joomla code base, security, the fact that Joomla is an industry leader in being a multilingual platform, how flexible and extensible it is. All of these things are reflections of the values. And again, I just am calling us to live out more fully that claim. Of course, in any community, conflict is going to happen. It's not a bad thing. Conflict can lead to incredible new insights. What's crucial is how effectively conflict is managed. And I feel like we can do much better in this area. We often have challenges, and I think we can do a better job in terms of working through those. The other thing I would do in terms of creating a healthy community of developers, users, and volunteers is I think we can do a better job celebrating the heroes among us. One of the things that I love about this podcast in particular, Chayton and Tim, that you guys do, is every episode you offer your guests an opportunity to highlight an unsung hero within the Joomla community. I think that's fantastic. I think of people like Jazz Parkin and the amazing work that she's been doing in recent months, especially to reignite our volunteer engagement efforts. Brian Pete is not even technically an active contributor, but just this week he was helping navigate some of the challenges that we're dealing with in terms of how we're going to handle the backend template issue around Joomla 4. And he was weighing in and helping to facilitate that conversation. Think about people like Karen Dunn, the Joomla Resources Directory. She volunteered nearly 3 years ago. Our team had been meeting regularly for a while, and I met Karen at JUG in Chicago. And we were struggling because we have these conversations, but we were having a hard time having somebody capture them to post them. So she volunteered to be the secretary. She's been doing that faithfully for almost 3 years, and actually just transitioned into becoming the assistant team lead for the Joomla Resources Directory. And of course, I can't talk about work down in Chicago without mentioning SD Williams. She's been managing Joomla Day Chicago for as long as I know. She does it every year, the Chicago Northside JUG. These are just examples from my lived experience in the Joomla community. Everyone knows their own Joomla heroes. I think we need to do a better job identifying them and thanking them and affirming the work that they do. So those are the two big things. I think we need to live out more fully who we claim to be, and we need to do a better job identifying those unsung heroes among us.
By being more kind to each other and stopping people from starving to death, because Joomla is somewhat like a religion. It is hugely addictive, and once you've got the bug, pardon the pun, it's hard to step back and look after, number one, yourself. So I think that's the main thing, is kindness. It's very easy to get on Twitter and be mean. It's harder to be kind, and we need to be more kind.
And wrapping up with question number 6, what do you see as the greatest threat to Joomla's growth or existence, and what is your plan to counter it?
Public image. Partly, as I've just said, what goes on Twitter, it makes us look like a elementary school playground. That's a big one. But also, nobody knows about us. Someone calls us the top secret CMS. And in a way, that's true. We need to make more noise. We need to talk about how great our CMS is, how much you can do for it. I think we do need to mention the competition, which I've been castigated for doing, because we're different and we should celebrate those differences. There are some areas where we rock, and we should show those areas, and we should compare apples and pears. Everyone else does, so I see no reason why we shouldn't.
I want to address this on two different levels. We'll talk about the short term and the long term. In the short term, I think there's probably some pretty good consensus that our biggest challenge right now is effectively launching Joomla 4. We could do, of course, an entire podcast addressing that. Everything I stated earlier is intended to create an environment where we can bring together marketing and production to align on a simple, straightforward game plan that gets us all pulling in the same direction for a successful launch. I know a lot of headway was made on that in the Forum for the Future a couple of weeks back. So I'll be excited to see how that plays out. But if we're unable to facilitate a healthy conversation to clearly define what done means for Joomla 4, I'm concerned that we'll continue to flounder in that area. So I'm excited to see how they're going to live out that plan that was laid out a couple of weeks ago. In the longer term, I actually think our greatest threat is our greatest opportunity. As I was discerning whether or not I wanted to run for president in this cycle, there were a couple of things I was reflecting on. The first is that I looked up, we have 108 active members of Open Source Matters participating in this election. 108. I went to the volunteers portal and we have over 1,850 people listed on the volunteers portal. Now, I know these are imprecise measurements of engagement and involvement, but that's almost a difference of 20 times. And that's a lot of untapped potential. So I think there's a huge opportunity to be engaging a much broader section of our volunteers. We also have some of our most passionate, knowledgeable, and dedicated contributors ever having stepped to the sidelines of the project because we as a community have failed to adequately appreciate their work and the sacrifices that they've made for the project. We need to thank them. We need to do better in how we treat everyone, including especially our biggest contributors moving forward. And then the third thing I was reflecting on is that at all levels of the organization, we've had leadership stepping away from their positions partway through elected terms without a succession plan for new leadership. And I don't hear us asking why that's happening always. So I think those are sort of three indicators of concerns that I have about where we should be as a community. I think it's driven by not focusing on who we claim to be. We kind of get in the trenches, we're busy solving technical, tactical problems and not always focused on that. So for me, I just imagine what it would look like if we were to improve the environment. What would happen if we had a greater focus on things like community and collaboration and transparency and trust. Again, it's in our logo, it's our name, it's our values, it's our vision statement. It's everywhere, everywhere you turn within Joomla. And it's the reason I'm running to be president.
There you have it. That's the end of our special Joomla Presidential Election podcast for 2020. We want to thank Brian and Rowan for their time and also want to thank Rowan and Brian for their ongoing willingness to participate at the board level in Joomla.
Today's episode was recorded in multiple Zoom calls connecting Italy, USA, India, and Canada. Until the next time, enjoy your Joomla site.
God bless.